All right, back to the cruise series. I've had a lot of people who have asked me, how do you how do you know which cruise to book if you're going to Alaska? And Alaska is one of those destinations that for some people can be a bucket list destination where they may only go one time. So if you're only going one time, you need to choose the right way. This could be a huge, really long series and really long video. So we're just going to do some bullet points. And then if you want me to get in deeper on some of these things, just let me know. Drop a comment. And if you want to learn about some of the other cruise lines that I've experienced or things that I have thoughts on, follow along because I've got some other videos in the past of some cruising that I have talked about. So digging into Alaska cruising. I have been to Alaska several times. I have cruised with 3 different cruise lines specifically to Alaska. And the ones that I have cruised with are all ones that will go into Glacier Bay, which should be on your bucket list, in my opinion. If you are going to Alaska, that should be on your destination bucket list. There are currently only three cruise lines that will go into Glacier Bay. Not all cruise lines are created equally. There are some that offer different things. So we'll get into that. So Glacier Bay is a national park. They have a limited number of permits for boats and marine vessels, I should say, to be able to enter the park each day. There are only currently 2 cruise ships that are allowed each day during that cruising season. And then there are other marine vessels, so smaller boats that can go in there also. So sometimes you'll see excursions that will take you into Glacier Bay or some smaller ones, smaller boat lines that will go in there. Or people will literally I was talking to a ranger the last time I was there. She said that there are people who will literally pull their boat up and stay in the park, and then there is a boat launch that they can take their boat to, and then they can go around. And if you're committed, you could do that too. But so for Glacier Bay right now, there's only 2 cruise ships that can enter per day, and then 3 cruise lines that can enter into Glacier Bay that have the permits that I've seen for on their itineraries. And I have seen other cruise lines say, when they've hinted that they're headed to Alaska, say that they were going to be adding that as well. I haven't seen them add it yet, but it would be really interesting to see what happens if they add some more. So right now, Holland America Line, Princess Cruise Line, and Norwegian Cruise Line are the 3 that will go into Glacier Bay. Holland America and Princess go in there more than Norwegian does. Holland America and Princess have the most permits currently, stops in their itinerary. Holland America has been sailing to Alaska the longest. They have been sailing to Alaska since before Alaska was a state. There's some really interesting, unique history to Holland America Line that I love. When I first learned more about some of this history when I was on one of their cruise ships going to Alaska, because they have some awesome they have some great seminars on the ship in the theater that teach you about Alaska and some of the different things, but also their cruise line. I just found it fascinating. Anyway, they have been sailing to Alaska the longest. Princess Cruise Line is their sister cruise line. And the 2 of them have the best parking spots when they are docking in Alaska in the different ports. Holland has some great relationships with their different cruise ports, and Princess is able to benefit from that as well. If you are wanting to, when you get into a cruise, when you're on a cruise, you want to pull up into a port in Alaska, you are pulling up into the port. You are right there in town. If you are really used to cruising in the Caribbean and whatnot, you probably are used to some super long cruise piers that you have to walk a long ways, or you walk a ways and you have to take a shuttle to get into the main part of town. Sometimes I've been on cruise ports that are very industrial, so you have to take a shuttle to get to where some of the shopping and stuff is, but that is not typical for Alaska. If you are able to park in the main downtown piers, Princess and Holland are pretty much shoo-ins for that. Norwegian is not one of the ones that is super close. They have some further away parking spots. And those are some things that we can talk more about when you're weighing the pros and cons of each of the different cruise lines. But Holland America and Princess, if being right there in the action is important to you, they are great options. So the three that will get you into Glacier Bay: Princess Cruise Line, Holland America Line, Norwegian Cruise Line. So those are my top three that are kind of my go-to when I'm suggesting a cruise to begin with. Virgin is adding a ship that is going into Alaska this coming summer of 2026. And I would love to get on one of their ships so I can see how they do Alaska, because I love sailing with Virgin. I have a very busy summer, so I have not been able to add that onto my list yet, but I am hoping that it is something I can squeeze in. One thing about Alaska is, especially when you're sailing inside passage, you're sailing, it is super narrow channels basically as you are sailing up through the inside passage. So you can't get the gigantic ships up there. Smaller ships are part of what gets them those cruise lines closer up there. Royal has some ships that go up there, but they're not their gigantic ones. There are other like smaller cruise lines that also have some smaller ships that go up there. I've toured one of the ships of Carnival's that goes up there, so I am familiar with the ships that head up there. Royal has a few different ones. If you're on a ship that does not go into Glacier Bay, there are itineraries that offer typically they will still offer an itinerary that gets you able to see a glacier from the ship. It's just not the Glacier Bay experience. I've done an itinerary where we would go down, I think it was Icy Strait Point, and then at the end pretty much is where Dawes Glacier is. So the ship will go as far as it can to get towards there. Depending on when you are in the season, it can get further. Sometimes they can't get there because of the icebergs floating in the water or weather or whatnot. So the goal is for you to be able to see it, but sometimes it just can't happen. Typically, when we were on the ship, we were sailing with Princess, and it took us to see Dawes Glacier. You would sail as close as you could to Dawes Glacier, and then the ship would do a full 360. It does that in Glacier Bay too, but it does a full 360 that way. No matter where you are on the ship, if you're out on a deck or you have a balcony or whatnot, you will have an opportunity to be right front and center with the glacier. And that is one of the highlights of it. And I know people who will sail Alaska and sail in an inside cabin to save some money and then just go and enjoy the beauty on the balconies or out on the decks. Balconies are definitely the rooms that go the first with Alaska, because you really want, what's not to love about being able to just sit on your balcony and enjoy the beautiful scenery? It is definitely ideal for Alaska. So this has been a long but quick overview. Some of the different things to consider with your Alaska cruise. If you want to sail Alaska and you need some help navigating that, I would love to help you. There are some options too to add, like cruise tours, to be able to tour interior Alaska either before or after you're sailing. So there's a lot of options. Hit me up, send me a message, or you can follow one of the links that has the quote request, and we can get started. I love to talk about Alaska. If you want to schedule a phone call or something, we can chat more about it. Also, there is an opportunity you could sail with me to Alaska. I am sailing on Holland America Koningsdam in September of 2026. I am a host for a group that is going. So if you are interested in joining that, let me know. Bye-bye.